Welcome to the Eiyo podcast, where I yap about whatever I want with whoever I want. Enjoy! Ayun, wow. So it is currently 11 p.m. on June 10. The Senate just concluded its first and maybe last impeachment court session, I think. No idea what happens from here, but it seems like it. So what happened? I came into this for context with excitement, honestly. Kasi, so the session started like this, no? Si Senator Bato de la Rosa wanted to discuss a proposal to dismiss the impeachment case. Pero, ang sabi ng Senado, including Senate President Chis Escudero, was that to be able to discuss whether to dismiss the case or not, the Senate would have to convene as an impeachment court to discuss the matter. And so everyone eventually took their oath today as senator judges. Si Senate President Chis took his oath yesterday as presiding officer. So I think that is that really gave me a lot of excitement kasi yung initial thought ko was, wow, susundan na yung constitution. We're gonna follow the process. Things are gonna work out. And so, si Senator Bato continued talking about this proposal to dismiss the impeachment case altogether. Pero, may mga senador, including Duterte ally, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, who then did not agree with Senator Bato's proposal. They didn't want to dismiss the impeachment case altogether. I think it was also, syempre, Sen. Risa Ontiveros and Senator Coco Pimentel from the minority, but also someone like Senator Joel Villanueva, who was against the proposal of Senator Bato. But Senator Cayetano then brought up a compromise. Ang sabi niya, instead of dismissing the case altogether, the Senate can then remand the case back to the lower house. Meaning, ibabalik yung kaso doon sa lower house until ibabalik. It's like a higher court bringing a case back to a lower court for the lower court to make clarifications and then bring it back up to the higher court. Si Senator Bato then opened his mind up to this idea. So let's read to you the motion or the amendment Senator Cayetano presented. So Senator Cayetano moved to amend the motion of Senator De La Rosa as follows: that the articles of impeachment be returned to the House of Representatives without dismissing or terminating the case, so they make that clear, until such time that, number one, the House of Representatives certify to the non-violation of Article 11, Section 3, Paragraph 5 of the Constitution, which provides that no impeachment proceeding shall be initiated against the same official more than once within a period of 1 year, including circumstances on the filing of the first 3 impeachment complaints. So that, I think, refers to the complaints filed starting in early December this year. So that's one. Second is until such time that the House of Representatives of the 20th Congress communicate to the Senate that it is willing and ready to pursue the impeachment complaint against the Vice President. So this motion won 18-5 votes. So I'm presenting here the senators that voted for and against. I am going to read to you yung mga nag-no kasi 5 lang sila. That's Senator Risa Ontiveros, Senator Coco Pimentel, both members of the minority, along with Senator Grace Poe, Senator Nancy Binay, and Senator Win Gatchalian. The others voted in favor of the motion. That's 18 senators. Di ko na siya babasahin kasi medyo marami na to. Anyway, so I watched the hearing. So I took down some notes. So essentially, when they remand the articles of impeachment, they'll be bringing back the articles to Congress. The rationale here, well, syempre, aside from the rule breaking I mentioned earlier, is the time limitation of the 19th Congress. Kasi syempre, they don't have a lot of time left. No? So, just to make things easier for them, so they don't have to worry about the impeachment anymore, ibabalik sa Kongreso yung articles of impeachment so that by the time the 20th Congress comes, that's when ibabalik. I think the initial plan was after the SONA, I believe, but I don't know about that anymore. So, initially, yung discussion was that they will still issue summons as an impeachment court. So the Senate will still issue summons. This assured people, I think this was mentioned before the vote even occurred. This is to assure people that the case will push through in the 20th Congress. But after the vote took place, there were a couple of clarification I listened to or I heard. Actually, two. So yung una, yung clarification ni Senator Risa was if the presentation of the articles of impeachment will be pushing through tomorrow kasi yung initial schedule for that would be June 11 rather. The response to that by Senate President Chis Escudero was that the articles of impeachment are deemed moot as a result of this remanding motion. Dahil wala na siya sa jurisdiction ng Senado, therefore, moot yung articles of impeachment, therefore, hindi na kailangan magbasa ng articles of impeachment hanggat ibabalik yung articles sa Senado. And then, coming from that, si Senator Bato asked to clarify also kung sakaling pwede pa rin ba mag-send ng summons yung Senado to the respective involved parties. At ang sabi ni Senate President Chis is, because moot nga yung articles of impeachment, wala nang jurisdiction yung Senado hanggat ibabalik yung articles of impeachment from the Congress. And thus, the Senate will no longer issue summons. Yan yung response ni Senate President Chis. Now, this brings me to my, I guess, arguments against remanding. Number one, it violates the forthwith principle. Yung constitutional principle that a trial must proceed forthwith, that it must proceed immediately. Hindi yan natutupad because of this. And while remanding means, or while remanding in this case doesn't necessarily mean dismissal, which was indicated naman in the motion, this doesn't guarantee na ibabalik yung articles of impeachment from Congress to the Senate. No. I mean, no case that is remanded is guaranteed to go back to its higher court. No. So that's the one big issue I have. And Senator Ontiveros also mentioned that remanding isn't really the only option for this case, no? I mean, if the one bar rule is really the only concern of the Senate, then there is an alternative, which is to have the Senate ask for documents from the Congress stating that they did not break the one bar rule. And we can discuss that more later, yung one bar rule. Diba? So that was an alternative. And yet, the Senate still decided to remand. Right? So, walang urgency yung Senado to continue on with the case. I mean, if the option was already there, I mean, why not just take that? If you're assuming urgent yung attitude mo towards this case. Turns out, mukhang hindi. So that's one. Another argument would be that the one bar rule, so yung provisions of Constitution that no impeachment proceeding shall be initiated against the same official more than once within a period of 1 year. That does not apply in this case. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not gonna pretend to be one. But yung basa ko dito is, isa lang yung complaint na ipinasa sa House Justice Committee. At isa lang yung complaint na ipinasa from the Congress to the Senate. No? So technically, this whole situation does not violate that one bar rule. And I don't just pull this out of my ass, no? Yung sabi nga ni Sen. Risa, again, I'm not a lawyer, but according to Gutierrez versus House of Representatives Committee on Justice, GR 193459. Halatang hindi ako abogado because I'm reading it like that. But basically, they argue that multiple complaints can be filed, pero basta isa lang yung ipapasa sa Committee on Justice, then you're not breaking anything. In this case, isa lang yung ipinasa, which was the yung may 250 plus signatures sa Kongreso. That was the only document that was passed on to the Senate. And I think the rationale behind the provision in the Constitution is not necessarily trying to limit the number of cases being filed against the person. It's more of focusing on time, on the time constraints of a case, or of having multiple cases rather. No, so in principle, I mean, you can have all these cases, but because you only have so much time, dapat isa lang yung kaso. Because if you have 2, 3, 4 cases, then you're gonna spend so much time, diba? I mean, at the end of the day, dalawa lang yung outcome na that can come out of this. It's either ma-convict ka or ma-acquit ka. So why double into multiple? Why not just choose the best case? So that's a non-issue in this situation because isa lang yung kaso that was passed on to the Senate, right? So there's no violation here. And therefore, Congress does not have to be involved anymore. I mean, they didn't break anything, and yet the Senate is still passing back the burden onto them to decide whether this case pushes through or not. Now, from a political standpoint, it's also kind of tricky because you can also see how this forthwith principle is being violated. No, when you're coming out of a midterm election, diba? Usually, pag midterm election, you're trying to determine whether a president is still powerful or not, kung lame duck na ba siya o hindi, or kung yung makalaban niya ay mas makapangyarihan kesa sa kanya o hindi. Diba? Once you come out of a midterm election, you come out therefore with a different Congress. Both in terms of composition kasi may mga bagong papasok na kongresista, and you also come out of a different Congress in terms of persuasion. Kasi syempre may resulta na. You can see kung may kapangyarihan pa ba yung administrasyon, kung may mandato pa ba yung administrasyon through the midterm Senate votes, no? Kung pasok ba yung majority of his alliance, di ba? So, regardless of the result of this election, you end up coming out with a different Congress. And so to pass that burden back to that new Congress already shows you na walang guarantee na ibabalik impeachment, articles of impeachment doon sa Senado. May level of uncertainty already, and that in itself shows that walang urgency. There's no value placed in the forthwith principle because you're remanding this document back to a Congress who you are uncertain whether they'll give it back to you or not. So there's no respect for the fact that this has to be responded with immediately. So another thing I want to point out is after the vote, may mga Duterte-aligned senators like I think Senator Robin Padilla, Senator Amy Marcos, I think Senator Bato were explicitly expressing that they don't think this trial should push through or should proceed rather to the 20th Congress. This seems more possible because the language is so vague, the circumstances around the situation is just, it's just ang gulo, grabe, ang dami nangyayari. They say they're not dismissing the case, but remanding the case doesn't also guarantee that the case goes back to the higher court. And so this begs the question, no? Ano ba yung galaw? What is the ultimate goal? Is it dismissal of the case? Are these senators just waiting? waiting on the dismissal of the case. Regardless of where you stand politically, whether you love VP Sara or you don't, I'm sure marami tayong audience members na, supporter or baka hindi. Yung nangyari today is a violation of the Constitution. Hindi binigyan ng urgency yung principle that the trial must proceed forthwith. And we saw so much legal defense to justify not following that principle. I think at its core, it's just wrong. Hindi siya tama sa mga tao, for the people that want to hear from the prosecution, that want to seek justice. Hindi rin siya tama para sa mga supporters ni VP Sara that want to hear from her, that want to see her clear her name. The people won't be able to see that anymore because there's a high chance, there's a high risk na hindi na ibabalik yung articles of impeachment sa Senado. And I think that's gonna be really sad. So that's it. Thanks for listening to my talk. Later, I'll be releasing a new episode for the Eiyo podcast. So, back to regular programming tayo with former presidential advisor on the peace process, Secretary Ging Deles, who is also one of the complainants, the first impeachment complaint versus Vice President Sara Duterte. And while tapos na yung session for now, I think the case she made for impeachment is still worth listening to. It's still worth listening to. And I think it's even more relevant now na there's a big chance na hindi na to matutuloy. So that's it. I hope you listen, and I hope you enjoyed this monologue, and good night. Hey there, thanks for listening to the Eiyo podcast. If you enjoyed, don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your other favorite podcast apps. And follow me, Eiyo Aquino, EIYOAQUYNO on TikTok.